think I told you earlier, I'm not sure I'm a superstar. Very cliche to say, but honestly, it is. It's an amazing place to be at. Honestly, it's good to be back here. It's good to be back playing again.
Do you enjoy the attention?
Sorry?
The attention?
No, I don't like it at all. I don't like being the centre of attention at all.
Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. Less than 2 days to go till the start of the Premier League season. And that's a modest Mark Gay telling us he's ignoring the noise around his future amid strong interest from Newcastle. Also on the way, are Chelsea about to spend big again? They plan further talks with Napoli for Victor Osimhen, but we'll tell you who will be key to that deal happening. Arsenal are in talks with Real Sociedad over a deal for the Spain midfielder Mikel Merino. But we're going to start the Transfer Show this hour with significant breaking news. It comes from Manchester United, and for us it comes from Dharmesh.
Yeah, really good news if you're a Manchester United fan. It was news that we were predicting would happen last week, and it has happened, and that is their captain, Bruno Fernandes, has signed a new contract with Manchester United that will extend his stay at Old Trafford until 2027, and that new contract comes with the option of a further year. You remember he actually joined from Sporting Lisbon around 4.5 years ago. It's in the January transfer window of 2020. And what a career he's had so far at United. 234 appearances, 79 goals and 67 assists as well. He's won the Player of the Year award at United 3 times already, and he's created more chances than any other Premier League player since he joined Manchester United 4.5 years ago. So brilliant news for United and for Bruno Fernandes. He signed a new contract that will extend his stay at least until 2027.
James Savundra's with us as well. You've got some reaction?
Yeah, we've got some quotes from Bruno Fernandes following the signature of that contract. Everybody knows the passion I have for Manchester United. I understand the responsibility and significance of wearing this shirt and the levels of dedication and desire required to represent this incredible club. I've had so many special moments here already, hearing my name sung from the Stretford end, scoring a hat-trick against Leeds, leading the team out at Old Trafford on European nights and lifting trophies at Wembley. But I wouldn't have signed this contract if I didn't believe that my best moments in a United shirt are still to come. From my discussions with the football leadership and manager, it is clear how determined everyone is to fight for major trophies in the years ahead. I can see how positive the future is going to be. I'm relishing leading this team forward.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes mentioned his discussions with the manager and the football leadership. Dan Ashworth, of course, is the sporting director at Manchester United. He's overseen 4 new signings already at Old Trafford in their first transfer window. And he had this to say. He said, Bruno has performed at such a high level with remarkable consistency since he arrived at Manchester United. He's a brilliant leader, driving the daily standards and inspiring the players and staff to perform at their highest levels every day. He went on to say that Bruno's dedication to the club epitomises what it takes to be a United player. He remains pivotal to everything that we want to achieve here, and we look forward to working together to deliver the success that this club demands. So Bruno Fernandes celebrating now a new contract with Manchester United until 2027 with the option of a further year.
Dharmesh, thank you. Much more on Manchester United later in the programme. But right now we're going to talk about the future of Mark Gay. The Crystal Palace star insists he is happy and enjoying life at the club heading into the new Premier League season. Gay's been strongly pursued by Newcastle throughout the window, but he says he is focused on playing for Palace this weekend.
So raring to go, new season?
Yes, starts up again. Exciting for everyone. You know, it's got a long season ahead of us, but yeah, I think everyone's ready to go now.
I saw it on your Instagram, I'm not sure when you posted it, at some point over the last couple of days, back at it. A few pictures of you with a big smile on your face. You look like you're happy and enjoying life. Is that pretty much sum up the situation?
I am, honestly. It's good to be back here. It's good to be back playing again amongst teammates. There's a nice little run out in front of the fans again. So, yeah, all positive at the moment, all positive.
Now, I don't know whether you heard yesterday Steve Parish saying great things about you, and I guess for one of the bosses to say it, it's all good. I'll read them to you for the sake of viewers that haven't heard them. I'm sure you have. He says you're a superstar player, generational talent, excellent lad, which I guess is even more important. A great human being, amazing character. How does it feel when someone like Steve Parish, who's so important to this club, says that about you?
Humbled by that. For someone that is such a big part of this football club, for him to say something like that is it's amazing for someone like me. I think I told you earlier, I'm not sure I'm a superstar, but you know, some really kind words from the chairman, so it's really nice to hear that.
The atmosphere around this place, it seems amazing. Everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. It's a club on the up. Is that the team spirit as good as you've ever known it anywhere here?
Yeah, I think since day one, since the beginning, it's been amazing. I think there's a real culture of togetherness here, and that is from everyone, from the academy, the women, and you know, the men's as well. You know, everyone's really on the same page, a real family. I mean, very cliche to say, but honestly, it's an amazing place to be at.
Do you enjoy the attention?
Sorry?
The attention?
No, I don't like it at all. I don't like being the centre of attention at all. I prefer to stay in the back and, you know, just let other people, you know, get the limelight.
You talk about not liking being at the centre of attention, but obviously, you know, there's a lot of times when you are on social media, people talking about your newspapers, radio, television. Can you just put that to one side and concentrate on Brentford on Sunday?
I can. I've been doing it my whole life, really. I've never really wanted to be looking too much into myself, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's always important to focus on what truly is important, and like you say, that's the game of the weekend, and making sure that, you know, for the rest of the season, as a team, we're at it.
You were listening really closely to that. What did you make of it? He's in a way a slightly difficult position to be talking.
He is, but he gives off the demeanour of someone who's very humble, very happy to be at Crystal Palace, very appreciative of the career he's had at Crystal Palace over the course of the last 3 seasons, and a reminder of where we're at in terms of this deal. Newcastle have gone in 3 times, 3 separate bids for Crystal Palace's Mark Gahey. They remain in talks to try to sign him in this window, but then also it's worth bearing in mind the comments that Steve Parish gave us yesterday, speaking to Sky Sports News, saying, if you want a superstar player, you need to pay superstar money, suggesting there is still a real gap in where Newcastle are and where Crystal Palace are. But I think it's been a remarkable few months for Mark Gahey. He didn't expect probably to step into that England squad and play the role he did, especially with the injury he suffered at the back end of last season. There were question marks whether or not he'd be fit for that tournament. But as far as he's concerned, he's loving life at Crystal Palace. He's appreciative of a club that gave him the opportunity at the age of 21 to play in the Premier League, to become the vice-captain of that football club, a club with a lot of momentum behind them towards the back end of last season. As far as he's concerned, he's fully focusing on the opening game of the season this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's a good point that James makes when he alludes to those quotes from Steve Parish, the Palace chairman, superstar player requiring superstar money. You also got to remember, when clubs actually value their players, it's not only on the open market, but it's how much they're worth to that particular club as well. So how much is he worth to Crystal Palace, number one? But also, when you do compare him to other players in the market, that's what Steve Parish is probably judging him against. Like Harry Maguire went for around £80 million. Jared Branthwaite, for all we know, Everton want £70 million plus for him. Mark Gahey went to the Euros. Jared Branthwaite didn't go to the Euros. So why shouldn't Steve Parish say this is the type of fee we'd be looking for? Vardiol, when he went to City, £70 million plus. Fofana, when he went to Chelsea, £70, £80 million plus as well. The only thing that may be going against Crystal Palace at the moment, because Steve Parish can quote what he wants at the moment, he's under contract at Crystal Palace, is Mark Gahey, but he's only got 2 years left. So if he isn't going to sign a new contract, which I'm sure Crystal Palace would want him to do, is this going to be the last window where they'll be able to command such a high figure for Mark Gahey? Because even if he has an amazing season next season, with 1 year left on your contract, that suddenly becomes a different ballgame, because it becomes a more of a vulnerable position if you're a club who's holding a player with 1 year left. And remember, he's just come off the back of playing in the Euros that I mentioned, and he was in many people's team of the tournament. So Steve Parish can look at all of these factors and say, he's done this, he's played in the Euros, he was brilliant at the Euros, he's at least £70-75 million.
OK. Should we move on to Chelsea and their search for a striker? developments on Victor Osimhen potentially going in and Romelu Lukaku going out?
This is developing into a very, very interesting situation now because the Napoli striker Victor Osimhen remains a target for Chelsea. We know that they have been interested throughout this transfer window, but with a little over 2 weeks to go, the interest is still there. Sky Italy have been reporting that the Napoli sporting director, Giovanni Manna, is in London discussing a whole host of deals between Napoli and clubs in England, including Romelu Lukaku, including Billy Gilmour from Brighton as well. Having said all that, it is a very, very difficult deal to do. It's a complex deal to do. It's a complicated one to do. It would require Lukaku plus cash to go to Napoli for Chelsea to get Victor Osimhen. Such is the difference in the price tags of both players. And also, an added complication is the wages that both players are on. Victor Osimhen is on significantly higher money than Romelu Lukaku. Chelsea, we think, value Lukaku at around £35 million. We think Napoli want to start the bidding at around £27 million. But then Chelsea could turn around to Napoli and say, you're asking for £100 million plus for Victor Osimhen. We'd want to negotiate on that price as well. One thing is clear. Napoli are desperate to sign Romelu Lukaku. Make no mistake about it. As soon as Antonio Conte took on the role as head coach at Napoli, one of his primary targets, if not his primary target, was Romelu Lukaku. He managed him at Inter Milan when they won the Scudetto title in the 2020-2021 season. Romelu Lukaku arguably had one of his best seasons in his career during that season. So it's easy to see why Antonio Conte wants to be reunited with him. Osimhen hasn't been featuring for Napoli during pre-season. He's asked to leave. Napoli have made it public that he wants to go as well. And I just wonder, with that being made public, what that's going to do to his price tag as well. PSG, they've been making a lot of noises as well that they're interested in Victor Osimhen. They're more likely to leave it until towards the end of the window to see if they can get a better price, because a lot of clubs are now detecting that Napoli want to sell. I just wonder now what the next step is going to be, because there's a lot of money involved and the valuations are so high. It is a difficult deal to do, but the fact that they are talking would imply that maybe, just maybe, there's a deal to be done.
Just got to throw in a curveball. Can we say that the ball is in anybody's court in particular at the moment?
I don't think so, because Chelsea know that Napoli are desperate for Romelu Lukaku, and Chelsea also know that, well, Victor Osimhen has asked to leave. In that way, maybe it's more towards Chelsea, but the fact that Napoli are grumbling over a £35 million price tag compared to where they want to start the bidding at £27 million, when they've got an asset that they value at £100 million, I think both clubs can basically go into a negotiation with a bit of manoeuvre.
Does all this in any way affect what we were talking about yesterday, which was that Chelsea are interested again in João Felix and obviously the connection there with Conor Gallagher going to Atletico Madrid or not?
This is where it gets complicated. I think Chelsea are still exploring that deal for João Felix from Atletico Madrid. That was after the Samu Omorodion deal from Atletico to Chelsea had broken down over personal terms. And you mentioned the name Conor Gallagher. I think all of this kind of increases the uncertainty surrounding Conor Gallagher. He's back in London after his move to Atletico Madrid was put on hold because of that failure of the Omorodion deal. Chelsea, though, are still desperate to sell Conor Gallagher. Atletico Madrid were really impressed by all accounts when Conor Gallagher came over for those few days to do his medical, to finalise those personal terms, and he was talking to people at the club. They were really impressed with him. They do want to do that deal. They were confident of doing that deal. They even put a picture up of Conor Gallagher in the stadium with the caveat, we're still trying to finalise this deal. I'm not sure that was the wisest thing to do, but that happened anyway. The question remains, how can this deal get done when there seems to be an impasse in it? Well, first and foremost, Atletico Madrid need to raise funds. They've agreed £36 million with Chelsea, which was going to be funded by the Omorodion deal. So they need to find this £36 million from somewhere. It would be easy if they could do that deal with Felix, because then you're dealing with one club and two players. Failing that, they need to raise money by selling another player. Now, the Omorodion deal could still be won that rears its head, but not necessarily to Chelsea. They could sell him to another club to raise that money to get Conor Gallagher. I just think that the Felix deal looks like it would be the one that would be the easiest one to do, and yet provides the most amount of complications, because it feels like at this stage the primary target of all of them would be Osimhen for Chelsea. What's clear at the moment is Gallagher is in limbo, but Chelsea aren't in the best position either. I've been looking at various scenarios that could emanate from what could happen with these three players. And I guess in an ideal scenario, Chelsea would sign Victor Osimhen. They would sign João Felix. Romelu Lukaku would go with their best wishes to Napoli. Conor Gallagher would go with their best wishes to Atletico Madrid. That would be a great scenario for everyone. The worst case scenario is that Conor Gallagher doesn't go to Atletico Madrid, doesn't move in this transfer window, is 4 months away from being able to sign a pre-contract agreement with a club outside England in January and go for free the following summer, or just sit back and say, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to honour my contract at Chelsea, and next summer I can take my pick from any club on a free transfer. Because when you look at his situation, from the outside, Conor Gallagher really hasn't done much wrong in this whole scenario. He's seen Chelsea offer him a 2-year contract plus a 1-year option, which coded means we want you to go. And we want you to go to Atletico Madrid. And he appears to agree to all of these demands, if you like. And it's not his fault that the deal's broken down. And now he finds himself in limbo.
If your great scenario happens, that's effectively 2 in and 1 out because Lukaku was out on loan. Signing
Yeah, Celtic have confirmed the signing of Adama on a 5-year deal from Norwich. Now, we understand Celtic will pay £8.5 million. That's the initial fee, plus £1 million in add-ons. Norwich also inserted a 15% sell-on clause too. He had a brilliant time on loan last season. He joined in January, made 19 appearances, 9 goals he scored, including the winner in the Scottish Cup final against Rangers. And he now comes into contention to be part of Celtic's squad for their next game against Hibs in the League Cup on Sunday. So Adama has been confirmed as a Celtic player.
Excellent. James, thanks very much indeed. Just want to bring you some important team news for the big football match in global terms this evening. It is Real Madrid against Atalanta of Italy in Warsaw for the Super Cup. And what a lineup Real Madrid are able to field now. Their new man, Kylian Mbappe, in the number 9 shirt, makes his debut alongside Vinicius Junior with a little bit of backup from Jude Bellingham of England. How will they fare this evening against this Atalanta lineup? The team from Bergamo in Italy line up like that with Ademola Lookman, once of Fulham, once of Charlton, is leading the line for Atalanta, and he was their goal-scoring hero against Bayer Leverkusen when they won the Europa League. Keep in touch with that through the evening. Right now, we're focusing on the transfers 2 days away from the start of the Premier League season. Mind you, who will be the champions come next May? Mikel Arteta's Arsenal finished 2 points behind Manchester City last season, and he thinks his side have to set new standards if they want to win their first title in 21 years.
I think nobody's going to put more demands. There's no computer, there is nobody external is going to put more demands on us that we're going to do ourselves. So that's it. Let's give it a go. 5
points adrift 2 seasons ago, 2 points adrift of the title last season. On that trajectory, maybe with a chance of winning it this time.
It's going to be about the journey, and we have to think about the start, where we want to be on day one. I think we had a good pre-season. We made some big strides, and we're ready to go.
84% your win rate in 2024. Won 16 of the 18, drew one of the others. Is that giving you a special belief that you can look forward in the summer rather than look back?
For sure, that's what we've done. You know, to improve those numbers becomes really, really tricky. You know, but this is the level that is required to win this Premier League, and with the competition that we have in the league. So every year is going to be harder. So we have to be better. We have to find margins in areas probably before that we haven't explored, and we all have to set new standards. And if we do that, we're going to give ourselves a really good chance.
Well, Darmish, could Arteta have a new midfielder to help their Premier League title hopes?
Could do. We've been talking about their interest in the Real Sociedad midfielder Mikel Moreno throughout this transfer window. We're told now that Arsenal are in talks with Real Sociedad over the signing of Moreno. Work to do on the deal, but significantly, the player is very, very keen to come to Arsenal. Personal terms not expected to be a problem. Significantly as well, he's into the final year of his contract, so maybe Arsenal can play on that fact and maybe knock a few £1 million off a potential transfer fee. He's featured in all 7 games in Spain's Euro 2024 victorious campaign. He impressed everyone, I think, especially when he scored the winner in the quarter-final against Germany. So still work to do on that deal, but talks are ongoing between the two clubs now.
With the revamped Champions League, more matches for all the top clubs, you have to have a big squad. You have to have absolute quality throughout the squad. How significant could Moreno's signing be for Arsenal?
It could be. I think one thing it highlights is Arsenal's flexibility when it comes to their transfer policy. I think ideally they look to sign the likes of Ben White, Calafiori. That sort of sums up where they want to go. Young players who are already vastly experienced who can come in and make an impact straight away. But at 28, Moreno is slightly different from that. But Arsenal was so close last season. They lost 1 game in 2024 in the Premier League. That was against Aston Villa at home. They're constantly trying to improve these marginal gains. They're constantly trying to become stronger whilst they're strong. They've done that in the goalkeeping department when they brought in David Raya, whilst many felt, well, Aaron Ramsdale's a perfectly capable number 1. They've done that with Calafiori. They've brought in a new centre-back who will play left-back as well, despite the wealth of options they have in that area of the pitch. And this is just another example of Arsenal just trying to go one step further in each transfer window to make sure they're ready to compete for honours this season. OK. James and Darmish are here for another half hour of the transfer show. You'll be able to see
An extended interview with Mikel Arteta, by the way, on Soccer Saturday pre-match from 10 this Saturday on Sky Sports News. Also on that show, interviews with Unai Emery and Kiernan Dewsbury. For Arsenal start their Premier League campaign on Saturday against Wolves. Simon Thomas and the gang are with you from midday for the first Premier League Soccer Saturday of the new season. Plenty still to come on this programme. Next, we'll bring you the latest from all 20 Premier League clubs in our Premier League wrap.
Around all the 20 Premier League clubs, here's your bite-sized Premier League roundup. Dharmesh, kick us off.
Oh, we almost started with Tottenham then. We're going to do Arsenal. Here's Arsenal. They're in talks with Real Sociedad over the signing of midfielder Mikel Merino.
Aston Villa, Unai Emery has suggested that they need to move players out before they able to bring anyone in before the deadline.
Bournemouth looking at striker options following the departure of Dominic Solanke. Interest retained in Arsenal's Eddie Nketiah.
Brentford are in talks with Burnley over a deal for Dara O'Shea. Two clubs remain apart on agreeing on his valuation.
Fenerbahce have so far refused to sell Brighton target Ferdi Kadioglu this summer. The Turkish club want more than £25 million for the left-back.
We've been speaking about this on earlier in the show. Further talks are expected this week over the potential transfers of Victor Osimhen to Chelsea and Romelu Lukaku to Napoli.
Crystal Palace Mark Gahey says he's happy and enjoying life at Selhurst Park. Newcastle have made 3 bids for him.
Everton remain amongst the clubs interested in signing Calvin Phillips from Manchester City.
Marco Silva says Fulham will definitely sign a central midfielder and are in the market for another centre-back.
Yeah, Ipswich are in talks with Napoli over the signing of Swedish international midfielder Jens Kajuste. The deal under discussion is for a straight loan.
Leicester City continue to work on a loan deal for Bayer Leverkusen forward Adam Hoshak.
Liverpool yet to make a signing in this window. They're exploring what a deal could look like for Georgia international goalkeeper Georgi Mamadashvili. We understand reports are premature that a deal is close.
Manchester City could be in the market for a central midfielder and a forward to provide cover for Rodri and Erling Haaland.
Great news for Manchester United. Their captain Bruno Fernandes has signed a new contract until 2027. Meanwhile, United are expecting offers for midfielder Christian Eriksen. A number of clubs have explored the conditions of a deal.
Miguel Almiron looks increasingly unlikely to leave Newcastle United for FC Charlotte. The MLS window closes at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning.
Nottingham Forest are interested in signing Paraguay international winger Ramon Sosa.
Southampton manager Russell Martin says they are not in the race right now for Celtic midfielder Matt O'Reilly.
Tottenham and Jed Spence is expected to be in Ange Postecoglou's first team plans this season. That's after an impressive pre-season. The right-back who spent most of his time at Spurs so far out on loan is therefore unlikely to leave before the deadline.
West Ham United have made 8 signings in this window. They may not be done either. It's understood they remain in the market for a midfielder if the deal is right.
We've spoken to Wolves boss Gary O'Neill today. He says they're in the market to replace Pedro Neto and their former captain Max Gilman.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of that. Well, let's look at Pedro Neto, Chelsea's acquisition from Wolves for £54 million. He's Enzo Maresco's 10th summer signing of the window. He's been given that number 19 shirt. So what does it mean for Wolves, as the boys were alluding to? Gary O'Neill says there is still time for deals to be done, but with Kilman and Neto gone, replacing 2 of their best players won't be easy.
We need to replace them. They're a huge part of what we were. Max played every minute of every game. Pedro had a huge involvement in loads of our goals, loads of our big results. 2 of the club's best players. So we're working very, very hard on trying to replace them. It might not be like-for-like replacements, but with 3 weeks left of the window, I think we've still got a bit to do to help the players that we already have to make sure that the fact that we've lost Pedro and Max and managed to get in some real good money for them is used in the right way to help us be really, really competitive, because it's a tough league, and you can see, you look at some of the other clubs and the deals that are being done, it's a really competitive league. West Ham, for instance, we played them in pre-season and played really well against them. Since that day, I think they've probably signed 6 players, so every team in the league is pushing to improve. And these next 3 weeks is still really, really important for us. The team's in a real good spot, understanding wise and what we're trying to be and what we're trying to do. And now the next 3 weeks, we start to look at Premier League games and we start to try and finish the transfer window really, really well to give ourselves the best chance possible.
Let's just expand on that a little bit. Who have Wolves got their eye on?
Well, this is really interesting. Wolves have an interest in Brentford forward Johan Vissler, who was so brilliant for Brentford last season and has been since he signed for the club. He scored 12 goals in 34 league games last season. He's seen as a potential replacement for Pedro Neto. Seems a perfect fit to bring into their forward line. You can see why when we've seen him with our own eyes in the Premier League this season. We expect Wolves can match Vissler's personal terms, but we wait to see whether or not they can find the money that Brentford would want to get rid of what would be a prize asset at a time where they're already missing one of their star strikers they brought in this window in Igor Thiago. There's still question marks around the future of Ivan Toney as well. So you would think Brentford would be very unlikely to want to let him go in this window, especially with just days to go until the start of the season.
We shall see. Thanks very much indeed. We've brought you 2 significant bits of break. Here is more from Darmish.
Yeah, this is bad news potentially for Manchester City. Remember we were telling you about Julian Alvarez leaving for Atletico Madrid and whether Manchester City would go back into the market for a forward. but it also was a sign and a nod to players like Oscar Bob and the faith that Pep Guardiola has in these young players.
OK, let's move across Manchester to the big breaking news that we brought you at the start of the transfer show this hour. Bruno Fernandes signing a new contract at Manchester United until 2027. And it's a kind of reminder that really significant moments in a transfer window can be not just new players coming in, but players being persuaded to stay a bit longer.
And Manchester United will feel this could potentially be one of the best bits of business they do in this window, keeping hold of Bruno Fernandes for the best years of his career. He turns 30 next month. His contract was due to expire in 2 years' time. So this brings to an end any speculation around his future, because there have been doubts about his future because of the comments he made in May before the FA Cup final. He said he wants the expectations of the club to fit within his own expectations. He also said, if the club wants me to stay, I'll stay. If they don't, then I'll leave. Well, he appears to be convinced by this new project at Manchester United, guided by Ineos, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe at the top of it, Dan Ashworth coming in, Omar Barada coming in as CEO. And also, he's been convinced he's a huge part of it as well. I think it's important to state there's never been a single moment where Manchester United thought that Bruno Fernandes didn't want to stay there or ever questioned his integrity or his commitment or desire to stay at Manchester United. That's always been clear. One thing he's done now is committed the best years, the last significant years of his career, to Manchester United with this contract extension.
OK. It makes 4 transfers in all if you include Matthijs de Ligt and Nusa Mazraoui for United this summer, £60 million for them from Bayern. Are they still looking to do more business this window?
I think so, yes. I think recruiting a midfielder remains a priority. We've been speaking about it throughout this transfer window, that was one of the areas that Manchester United wanted to strengthen in. And with a little over 2 weeks to go, they are still looking in that area. But it will depend on budgets. That's what I'm told. So likely there would have to be sales to facilitate more incomings. That doesn't necessarily mean that there would have to be a sale in central midfield. It would help because it would create squad space in that particular area. But I'm told it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. It could come in another area where they're already well stocked. We already know that Matthijs de Ligt, that you mentioned there, that could mean a central defender leaves Manchester United to bring in some money. They've got a plethora of forward players at Manchester United at the moment. If one of those was to leave and bring in money, they could reinforce in central midfield, because we know we've been talking a lot about Casemiro and Scott McTominay and their futures at United. PSG's Manuel Ugarte is a name we've been talking about for weeks and weeks. He remains a primary target. A big gap in valuation still exists, but significantly the player wants to come. Personal terms aren't expected to be a problem. And I think United are probably aware that PSG might be under a little bit of pressure to maybe do business with Ugarte, because his game time was a little bit limited in his first season. It didn't work out as well as he would have wanted and as well as PSG would have wanted when he made that big money move from Sporting Lisbon last summer. They do want to make a profit on what they paid Sporting Lisbon, which was around £50 million. United don't want to go that high at the moment. And since then, in this transfer window, they've brought in João Neves from Benfica. Young, up-and-coming, huge potential player, and he's going to start. And he will start ahead of Manuel Ugarte. So that's another issue that PSG are going to have to address. But the current price looks pretty prohibitive for Manchester United. So they are looking, in keeping with how they're doing their business in this transfer window, at plenty of other targets. Sofian Amrabat, that one hasn't been ruled out, him coming back. You've got the likes of talks ongoing with Burnley over Sander Berge as well. There was talk of Youssouf Fofana from Monaco, but Milan are still pushing to get that deal done. And I did mention maybe creating squad space. There's a lot of talk now about Christian Eriksen's future as well. We understand that there are a lot of clubs who are interested in the Danish international, just exploring the conditions of a potential deal. No formal offers as yet, but Manchester United are expecting some.
OK. I mentioned 4 incoming, significant incomes before the window gets to its final fortnight before the season starts. Is this a change because there is new leadership at the top of the football department? Is this United learning from what went wrong in previous summer windows? Bit of both?
A bit of both. I think Erik ten Hag will be absolutely delighted, because let's bear in mind his first 2 pre-seasons at Manchester United. The first summer, Anthony and Casemiro joined so late into the season after those 2 damaging defeats they had to Brentford and Brighton. Last season, they signed Amrabat and Reguilon on loan the final day of the transfer window. They brought in Højlund just days before the season started, but he wasn't fit and couldn't start the season. This is the first summer that Ineos have had, the first summer of this new sporting structure, and it feels pretty straightforward what they've been doing, but it's been so different from the business that United and the way United have gone about their business in recent years, because they've had multiple different targets in each area of the pitch, and that explains why they were able to buy 2 centre-backs in this window, because they were turned down twice by Everton for Jared Branthwaite, but at the same time, they still had dialogue open around the signing of Lenny Yoro and Matthias de Ligt, who they've both signed now. They wanted to strengthen at fullback, but they knew they needed to free up some budget and squad space to be able to recruit in that area. So they had this deal so far down the line with Mazraoui that as soon as they knew that Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they had full agreement with West Ham around the signing of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they knew they were getting 50 million for him. They had Mazraoui in for a medical the next day. That's how quickly they've been able to act, and that's what they'll do in this window as well. They'll have multiple options they're looking at, and it's just whether or not they act on it. The only disappointment for Ten Hag is he'll start this season without Lenny Yoro, without Rasmus Højlund, and without Luke Shaw, who's going to miss out until the first international break on Friday.
OK, they start their season, in fact, they start the Premier League season live on Sky against Fulham on Friday. You've got a line from Fulham.
Yeah, we heard from Marco Silva a little bit earlier on when he was talking about the need for a central midfielder and a need for a centre-back. He says they'll definitely sign a central midfielder. We do know that they went in with a couple of bids for Scott McTominay. They're not expected at this stage to go back for Scott McTominay, but the central defensive area is something that we need to keep an eye on. Remember, they lost Tosin at the end of his contract. Tim Ream has gone to Charlotte FC. So really 2 centre-backs they needed to recruit. Jorge Cuenca has come in from Villarreal, the Spain under-21 international, and Marco Silva's already been talking him up. He'll say he'll surprise a few people. The other centre-back position that they want to fill looks like it's between 2 players. They're after Joachim Andersen from Crystal Palace. They've made 2 bids for him. The latest was worth around £30 million. We think Crystal Palace value him closer to £40 million. Whether Fulham will go that far remains to be seen. But while they wait for an answer on their second bid, that will then decide whether they'll go back in for Diego Carlos at Aston Villa. There's still open dialogue with Aston Villa with regard to Diego Carlos. They made 1 bid which has been rejected. If they go in with a second bid, that will probably mean that Crystal Palace have denied and rejected the second bid for Joachim Andersen.
OK, just to underline for you, the opening game of the Premier League season, the Friday night football, Fulham against Manchester United. Our coverage starts at 6:30. Sky Sports Premier League. Very tasty opener to the new season. Still to come on the Transfer Show tonight on Sky Sports News, the rest of the day's transfer news. And could Arne Slot be close to making his first signing in charge of Liverpool? Right, Dharmesh James, we've got 4 minutes left. How many stories can we get through in that time? Let's start at Liverpool.
Liverpool, they're exploring a deal for what could be a new goalkeeper in the form of Georgia's international goalkeeper, Georgi Mamadashvili. At the moment, it's too early to say that a deal has been agreed. That's premature. Important to state here, they're not looking to replace Alisson. They're doing due diligence on finding his long-term successor. Currently 31, Alisson. Mamadashvili, a different bracket, 23 years of age. They believe he's got huge potential. Currently in Valencia, impressed hugely at the Euros. Remains to be seen if Liverpool were to sign this window, or if he joined Liverpool in this window, or they'd look to send him out on loan, potentially to another Premier League club. Bournemouth, one side who are interested in signing him.
OK, West Ham, 8 in already. Any more business?
Potentially. I think they want to bring in a midfielder before the end of the transfer window. Remember, they tried to go for N'Golo Kante, so they're obviously in the market to bring one in. Just trying to find out what kind of names that they are looking at. I've got a few texts out there at the moment and just waiting for some responses, but definitely a midfielder looks like a possibility for the rest of this window. As for departures, Kurt Zouma's still in a bit of limbo at the moment. We think he's still out in Dubai after his deal to take him to the UAE club Shabab Ali fell through because of a failed medical. He's into the final year of his contract. The talks have continued between both clubs to try and find a resolution. I think West Ham's initial plan, because he's into the final year of his contract, was to mutually terminate that contract so there wouldn't be any transfer fee involved and Shabab Ali would take on his wages. But because of this medical issue, I think that Shabab Ali don't want to pay a transfer fee and they don't want to pay the full wages either. So maybe what's been mooted now is a loan deal potentially, whereby West Ham contribute to those wages. But that's just an idea that they may be throwing around. But as it stands, there are other clubs who are interested in Zouma, and those options remain live still.
OK, West Ham active under a new manager. Brighton likewise?
Yeah, 2 deals they're working on, one very advanced at this stage, and those are the words in the minds Sporting Director Christian Heidel. Brighton looking to sign their winger Brajan Gruda. Now, this deal could cost around £25 million for the winger. Germany under 21 international. Still a few things to clarify, but this deal looks very close to being completed. And also trying to sign a left-back, Ferdi Kadoglu from Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce want more than £25 million for him. Brighton hope they can try to sign him in this window. Fenerbahce missed out on Champions League qualification in the last few days. He's keen on the move to the Premier League. However, club's not close to an agreement at this point.
Very quick word on Ipswich.
Yeah, I told you before that the Napoli sporting director was doing a number of deals, including Romelu Lukaku and Billy Gilmour. Well, they might be doing a deal with Ipswich, actually, because Ipswich are in talks with Napoli over the Swedish international midfielder Jens Kajuste. Deal under discussion is for a straight loan. He could have joined Brentford on a loan with an obligation to buy for £10 million. That one fell through and he flew back to Italy on Tuesday. But Ipswich now in talks for a straight loan.
Is Miguel Almiron leaving Newcastle?
Looking more and more unlikely by the minute, because FC Charlotte approached Newcastle on Sunday about trying to sign him in this window. The unfortunate thing for them, they're running out of time. The MLS window closes 6 a.m. tomorrow morning UK time. He's still an important player for Newcastle, so any deal would have to make sense for all parties. That is looking unlikely as the clock ticks down. OK, James Savundra Dharmesh, thanks very much indeed for your company. The Transfer Show is back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Don't forget, keeping an eye on the Super Cup this evening with Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe in partnership for Real Madrid against Atalanta. Also coming up in the next hour, good news for Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has signed an extended contract. We'll bring you some comments from him. And bad news for Manchester City. We'll tell you how bad it is for Oscar Bob. Stay with us.